Conflict resolution expert Dr. Kingsley Makhubela joins us now to talk a little bit more about these. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Dr. Makhubela. So I want to just start there. First of all, by the way, compliments of the season, and I think we've spoken this year. The New Nation movements, if you just heard Bulelani Mkhohliswa say that they believe that these amendments have nothing to do with the original order. Do you share these sentiments?
There is a lot of concern, particularly among civil society organizations, even other political parties, because if you recall, Tshepiso, when the National Assembly voted for the bill, 232 members voted in favor and 98 against. So you can see there's no political buy-in in terms of what needs to happen. But what is of concern to other parties, it's the criterion that is used to contest the National Assembly. Currently, this bill, the recommendation that are currently within the parliamentary corridors, would bar independent candidates from contesting the proportional representation. Now, proportional representation is quite crucial because that's where the president will be elected by members of parliament, meaning that they will be outside that. And of course, what is of great concern again is that independent candidates are required to have about 8,000 signatures, if I recall well, yet political parties to contest any election, they're required for 1,000. So people are raising these disparities to say, why is this bill favoring more political parties than independent candidates? So what it is, people are contesting that the playing field is not quite level for all political parties to contest this. Of course, people keep on confusing this with the Van Slabbert recommendation, which basically speak about a hybrid model. And of course, it doesn't address the question of independence, but the question of independence, it came from the constitutional courts.
And this is what the Home Affairs Minister, Dr. Mzwaledi, has said or has been saying, that the Van Slabbert model doesn't talk about independence. And the reason actually they want to establish a panel for the bill is to investigate even broader reforms to the electoral system. Do you share these sentiments that this is of higher priority? And we'll go back and look at the Van Slabbert model and why it's been gathering dust, as some critics have said.
So the constitutional amendment, usually in any country, it's a very tedious process. And it must be very thorough in its investigation. Unfortunately, in our system, you don't take that through a referendum, because usually you would have people expressing their views through a referendum in terms of what is required. In other democracies, you'll find different models are presented to electorate to vote on in a referendum, and they make a decision on that. So we don't have that system. So the system of consultation ought to be thorough. You can make cosmetic amendments to meet the deadline of the Constitutional Court, which would have serious implication in terms of the constitutional order of the country. I think the minister is quite right that this requires enough time. What I don't understand is why didn't the government from the beginning requested more time from the Constitutional Court, given the magnitude of the problem? Because this is not, it changes the manner in which our democracy is going to function. So you need to pay serious attention to details that are contained in this bill that is being proposed.
So you spoke about proportional representativity earlier on, and some of what came out of, I think it was 11 electoral systems that were proposed by the Van Slabbert reforms. There were those in their reading of it who say part of what was the model that was favored, the first past the post system, that I understand is what Britain uses, would have actually addressed the issue of independent candidates. What are your thoughts about this? The 300 single representative constituencies.
Tshepiso, the horses have bolted now, because the Constitutional Court have made a ruling to say there must be an inclusion of independent in the political system of the country. They never put a limit to say they should contest to this level and not beyond that. Of course, there are merit in the argument that is being raised that the current proposals would bar independent from contesting the National Assembly and proportional representation. It would defeat the purpose. I think people are saying that would be unconstitutional. So we are likely to see a lengthy litigation process challenging whatever comes out of this process. And it comes back, Tsepiso, did we get enough time to fix flaws that are contained in our electoral system? Justice Zondo, in his ruling during, in his presentation during the state capture report, he has addressed this issue of political representation in parliament or members of parliament who are actually more loyal to their political parties than to their sworn affidavits to parliament. So there are issues, there are flaws or shortcomings within the current system that ought to be addressed. And people are speaking about why don't we reform the entire system and come up with a constituency-based system. The jury is out. Are political parties allowing that? Are we as a country really ready for that? Have we drawn boundaries that are not racially based? Because part of the current system, the PR system, the proportional representation, was to try to eliminate the division of the country. If you recall, the adoption of the Constitution was to eliminate the racial representation of the country and to try to integrate the society. But it is having unintended consequences, as we can see.
If you could just, break it down for us, bring it down in an accessible manner to understand this whole proposal of single representative constituencies and what it would mean for, as you say, greater electoral reform, or actually just even the role of political parties, given some of the very difficult places we find ourselves in, especially when we're talking about cooperation, or should we say what we're seeing now, a greater playing field for multi-party democracy?
So if we were to, as a country, consider adopting the constituency-based system, it would mean if I live in Meadowlands in Soweto, and if Meadowlands, Soweto is a constituency, we as residents of Meadowlands would have to choose who our representative is. And that representative would be accountable to us, not to their political parties. We would have the right to fire them. We can then interrogate what kind of developmental projects are they going to have for their constituency? What kind of issues are they going to deal with from their constituencies, like the question of the road system, electricity, sewage system. So there will be a direct participation by people if we were to have the constituency-based system. But the proportional representation, they are accountable to political parties. They are not accountable to constituencies. We can't call an MP in our area now and say, come and tell us what are you doing for our area. And that's where the flaws of the system is. And I think as our democracy evolves and develops, we really need to consider what is best for the country, not what is best for political parties. Because what is currently a problem within the National Assembly or corridors of the National Assembly, people are trying to carve in what is best for their political party instead of what is best for the country.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, and look forward to the developments on this as we continue to engage you on this. Dr. Kingsley Makhubela, just sharing his thoughts on this. The 2024 elections is what the deadline is for these electoral reforms, but questions about whether or not Parliament will be able to meet its deadline. One of the issues that is also being contested is a threshold for signatures for independent candidates. So we'll continue looking at the story here on Global.